Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our first ever webinar on a new series that we are calling Making Friends with Emotions. Now, what does making friends with emotion means? It means getting our children to understand difficult concepts like fear, anger, self-acceptance, things that they feel on day-to-day basis, but they might not be able to articulate or even make you understand. In fact, we want to help parents in understanding these emotions better so that they can help their child, work with their child towards a more resilient, a more mindful way of parenting. If we have to take a couple of steps back and explain to you why we started this process, it actually goes to that one moment when the world came to a halt and we all went under the lockdown. We were all home. We were all trying to figure out new ways of working, new ways of connecting with people we know. We discovered virtual reality. We discovered webinars that were taking place online. We somehow found a way of moving forward and doing it with grace, doing it with dignity, doing it with whatever we could learn on the go. What happened during that period was there were very young children who did not see their friends for months. That eventually turned into years, 2 years of not meeting your friends, 2 years of not sitting in a classroom, discussing your lunch, taking a water break, just running around the school corridors. It took a huge toll on these children. Some symptoms, as we can call them, were very visible, but there were a lot of things that were happening behind their, very smiling faces and very active faces that were right now very excited about going to schools, which they were not understanding, and we are definitely not understanding. There were cases of bullying, there are cases of anger fits. In fact, when we did the survey before starting the process of this webinar, 76% people who filled the form said we want to tackle the emotion of anger in our children. And I'm talking about kids as young as 4-year-olds. Parents are still understanding that what my child is showing is anger, but the child probably doesn't know it. And the parents don't know how to handle it, how to do it in a way that does not become difficult, not just for them and the child also. It needs to be something that they need to embrace. They need to understand. They need to accept. They need to know how to move forward with dealing with things like anger, dealing with things like fear. Children lost their grandparents. They lost people that they had seen before the lockdown. And suddenly after the lockdown, these people did not exist anymore. The process of grief was very difficult for children. It was hitting them in a way that is probably very difficult for us to articulate and for them also currently. But there has been a complete shift in the way children are behaving right now. Studies are being done. Research is showing that there is a huge increase in aggression. So we decided somewhere in the beginning of this year that we will introduce a section for children. We started discussing with our masters. We discussed with the Sabrina, who is going to be talking about these emotions today, on how to make it easy to understand. And that's when we came up with the concept of making friends with them. You make friends with your emotions. You treat them the way you would treat a friend. You sit with them, you have a chat with them, and then you move ahead and just continue treating them like friends. So here's our first webinar ever of this very, very special series, very close to my heart and definitely very, very close to Sabrina and Nishta's heart. And two of them definitely don't need an introduction for our regular users, but it's such a pleasure to introduce the two of you. Nishta has been with us from the start of our journey. She was, in fact, the second master we worked with after Sister Shivani when we started the app. She has been a huge part of the entire journey. We started with meditations, then we introduced the concept of the connection of yoga and mindfulness, yoga for brain. That's something that we worked with her on, and it's also available. And I met the most amazing Sabrina Merchant, who specializes in just making emotions and day-to-day difficulties very, very easy for children. She breaks them down beautifully. I have seen a lot of her sessions. A lot of her sessions are on the app also. She does a lot of classes offline. And I think one of my favorite was the one she did at a mall. I mean, getting children to pay attention to a yoga class at a mall is something very, very special. So that's amazing, Sabrina. Both of you, thank you so much. for making time for this. It's a issue which needs to be tackled. It's the need of the hour. I'm so glad and I'm so grateful. Thank you so much from the entire TRM family. And I will also like to remind people, just a gentle reminder of the flow. We will keep the chat box closed in the beginning while we are talking, but towards the end of the session, we will open it. You guys can ask your questions. It would be nice if you can just click on there's a symbol that says essentially raising your hand. It's easy for us to understand your questions then, but I'll try to take all the questions. If not, for any case, we are unable to tackle your questions, we will try and work with the masters to respond to you on individual basis. So do leave your email ID with the question. It becomes very important for us. Towards the end of the session, Nishtha will be sharing a work note also, which we will be emailing to all of you. So another reminder, please share that email, because the learnings of this session, you will have to practice them, not just with yourself, with your children also. As a family, you will have to practice them. So that's my request. And at some point, we will open the chat box. I know you want to ask them questions. So I'm not going to take more time. Welcome, Nishtha. Welcome, Sabrina. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jyoti. Thank you for having me.
Nishtha, of course. Can everybody hear them properly? Just raise your hand, guys. Great. Super. Super. So, okay. Sabrina, why don't we start with you? I mean, since you have been working specifically with children, how did the journey start, and why do you think it's so important to talk about these difficult emotions with kids?
Right. So, Jyoti, my yoga journey started around 13 years ago. And yoga for kids specifically came to me because I wanted my daughter to start her yoga journey. Now, as a child, to be honest, I really didn't like how yoga was taught to me as a child. I never understood what the connect to the breath was, or why am I being asked to take that deep breath in and do all the stuff that I was asked in school. Now, this time when I wanted to introduce yoga to my daughter, I wanted to make sure that she doesn't hate yoga whatsoever. So that was my first, the first thing that came to me is I have to make it good enough that she should enjoy yoga the way I enjoy yoga. So it was more about passing on the benefits that I have got all through the practice of yoga all these years. And that's when I started doing a lot of, I started looking at yoga not from a student's perspective, but more from a teacher's perspective. And I got myself qualified, the qualification that I needed to pass on the practice. And it started as organic as starting at home with my own daughter. And then it started moving on to more kids. The one thing that clicked, the thing that I wanted to do for Ikra to start yoga was one day she came and she told me, I asked her to sit down on the floor. And she said, no, I will choose to sit on the couch. And I asked her why. And she said, it's uncomfortable sitting down on the floor. And that was one line which just changed everything for me. And I said, it cannot be uncomfortable. You're just 5.5, 6. How can you not sit on the floor? So no, my leg hurts. I rather sit with my legs on top. And that was the day I wanted her to come down, stay grounded, stay connected. And that's where it all started then.
Lovely. It's always that one thing that changes it for all of us. Nishtha, what about you? You do a lot of practice for inner child, right? So somehow in a special way, we are all connected with our inner child. We take help from people. But how do you think we can compare our inner child and not let that emotion start reflecting on our children when we have them? Because I do get a lot of questions saying that, often what happens is we are feeling something and we start reflecting it on the child. How do you think people can easily differentiate between that? Like, my emotions need to stay with me. They cannot be just transcribed or reflected on my child at that point of time.
So, in all my time of teaching, I have seen around that I have a lot of parents who are dealing with young children, and I find them so troubled most of the time when they're having to deal with younger children. And what I constantly ask them to check is what is it within themselves that is not being touched upon, not being worked upon, so that they're then able to identify the issues of their child. As you brought up inner child, what it basically means is that growing up, as a kid, when we were younger, when parents, grow up, they probably had certain repressed emotions, certain conditioning that never really got a chance to be dealt with, unmet emotions. And they later just become harder. And once they have to deal with their own child, they realize a lot of those things start showing up on the surface and being projected on their child. So I think the work always, when you have to deal with your kid, starts with your own self. Till you have to keep going back to the workboard, to the drawing board, that what is it that I haven't worked on myself that I'm finding it hard to deal with my kid. So the answer, in fact, always lies with your own self. This is not to just deal with your kids, for that matter, any and every relation. So in fact, today's session, we're going to have the inner child discussion later. I think it's the most important for anybody going forward in any sort of relation, which is to deal with their own inner child, to constantly attend to their inner child so they can have a lot of aspects of their life taken care of.
Yeah, I completely agree with that one. I think most of the time it's our own emotions that need to be tackled with. I do want to ask about one thing before you guys take over the session, because this is one of the most common questions we have received. It's about parents asking, how do I tackle with my child? Tackle is the word that's being used. Who's angry and making me frustrated? I think it's one of the most common things that you hear, it's an angry child, but it's making the parents are feeling equally frustrated. And I think what they're trying to say is that it leads to a situation where there's almost a gridlock happening. Nobody is moving forward. So how does one address that?
Okay, so Jyoti, first let's start by understanding that anger is not a bad emotion. Anger is, most often we try to think of anger, oh, it's bad, it's something that you shouldn't have. Now that is one thing that we all need to understand, that there is going to be a time wherein we are all going to be upset, which is natural, which is human. You need to there are things that you're not going to like, and that is where that emotion is going to come back or come up and say that why aren't things happening my way, or why can't I get what I want the way it is. Now the question arises, so then what goes wrong with anger? So not the emotion, but how to handle that emotion, or how to use that energy that gets generated in your body, how to channelize it in the right way is what we need to learn. Now, most often when it comes to kids, what a child does is, when the child cannot get what they want, or they're upset about something, they want to throw a tantrum. Now, tantrums are of different levels. They can really go to a nasty level as well. But at that point of time, like Mishta mentioned, first thing is, as a parent, you need to have control over yourself, over your emotion, and understand that there is something that is that's triggering that emotion in your child. It is not like random. He or she is just behaving for a certain reason. So first we need to understand what's the trigger. And to understand the trigger, you need to be calm. If both are going to yell, if both are going to be upset, it's just going to lead to an even more worse situation. So first, as a parent, you need to stay calm. You need to understand what triggered it. After which, as a parent, it's natural to first thing want to comfort your child and say, it's okay, you don't need to get angry. What's the big deal? But understand, it's a feeling. It's a feeling. Let your child feel it. Let your child go through it. This feeling will make your child understand herself and himself better, to know what are their likes and dislikes. So there's nothing wrong if you get angry. That means you didn't like something. Now, what is it you didn't like? Just makes you understand that this probably doesn't work with me well. After which, don't be in a hurry to let that go. Give them space. So if a child tells you, or rather you as a parent, maybe this is something that you can set an example for, is when you are angry, and we as parents, I definitely use it very often on my daughter. In fact, she's come back and told me, when a student does the same mistake, you're very sweet, and when I do it, you be very mean to me. Which is, I think, every parent's dilemma, that when it comes to your own child, you lose it even more instantly. And so that is when you give them time. And when I get angry now, so I make it very vocal to her that, listen, Ikra, I am very upset with you because of this. Right now, I don't want to talk to her. Or I don't want to talk to you. Give me some time. I'm going to come and I'm going to. Now, this is something that then she also started mirroring in terms of in time. And she told me, Mom, I'm very upset, so I just need time. And that's when I don't push her. It's not that you have to tell me everything right here, right now, what happened. Fair enough. You're angry, you're upset. Stay. When you are okay to talk about it, we'll talk about it. Coming to the tantrum parts, wherein kids get into the thing of throwing things around, breaking things around, this is something which, again, they have seen this somewhere happening. It's not that it comes naturally to them. Somewhere they have seen it, maybe in the house, maybe some friend's house, or wherever, that if you're angry, they've seen it on maybe on television or whatever social media, that's the way you show you're angry. But there is some source that's coming there. So that's again where you as a parent need to calm down and say, this is not the way we're going to handle it, by following these simple things of staying calm. In terms of yoga poses, there are a couple of yoga poses that I would highly recommend. One is the Shavasana, which is the best yoga pose to do. Don't want to do, just stay, just lie down. If they don't want to do the Shavasana, I say, okay, I don't want to lie down right now. Fair enough. I'm sure there's one corner in the house which every child finds it's their room, their bed. Let them go, let them sit there, let them stay in that zone just to calm themselves down. Another simple thing that you can do is, open, close your fingers, helping them breathe. That's the most important thing. When any emotion is also with your breath. So the minute you start focusing on your breath, you're giving yourself time to again calm down. So just a simple open, closing of finger. And as you open, you breathe in. As you close, you breathe out. So that just again helps them calm down and think with a more balanced mind there. If not, so like I said, the Shavasana. And the other pose that I would highly recommend is the child's pose. Again, a very easy pose, not much of technicalities involved, can be practiced at any point of time. That's another pose that they can do. And the last one that I would recommend is having an anger jar, or a glitter jar is what we call for kids. So, those glass balls that you shake it, and the entire, you get all these shimmer that goes all around it. Give them a jar or give them something which just helps them stay where they are without talking, without moving, and just staying focused at the very present moment. It automatically subsides most of the after effects of getting angry. Then let's deal with the emotion, try and understand what happened. If there's something you can avoid, teach your child how they can avoid and not get into that situation. Or at the same time, if you can't avoid it, then let's work on seeing and how we can try and accept it. I'm not saying it has to be accepted if something is really harmful, but work around that emotion then accordingly. I think that's what anger is about. It's not bad. It's just about understanding how to channelize that energy that you have in you in the right direction.
Thanks, Sabrina. I think this is super helpful. I'm hoping you guys are making notes. These will come in very, very handy. Sabrina, I want to ask you something. Now, we do talk about reacting to certain emotions, but let's say you mentioned something called like the triggers, right? When the triggers come in, the language changes. So what are the key things that parents need to keep in their mind? Because, as parent, I think we either get into the silent treatment, like, I don't want to talk to you. Like you said, I don't want to talk to you because I'm upset. You're given an explanation. Or they just send the child to their room and say, now sit there. While you're also saying, like, I just want to understand the difference. Asking the child to do a Shavasana because you want them to calm down, you want them to understand what they're feeling, versus saying, now you go sit in that corner quietly. There's a very fine line, where it becomes a punishment versus it's just something I am helping you with. So what can parents do to just keep that little thing in mind so that the language and the tone is correct?
Right. So first, answering the thing that you spoke about, getting verbal and the words that come out. So it's normal when a child is upset. When we are upset, we tend to say things that we don't mean. And as a parent, I think the first thing you need to understand is don't take it personally. I hate you. You're the worst parent in the world. At some point or the other, we have all heard that coming from your child. But you as a parent know you're doing it with the best interest of your child in mind. So don't take it personally first, because your instant reaction is you want to answer back and give them a list of wrong things that they do to you. Okay, if I'm bad, you know what you have done? You have done this. I asked you to study, you didn't do. I asked you to clean your room, you didn't do, blah, blah, blah. And then the entire focus shifts. So that verbal acquisition, you as a parent, like I said, when I said, it's not a punishment. I am not telling my child, or you're not telling your child that you have to sit down there in 1 minute in silence. First, start with you as an example. So before you even give your child these instructions, you as a parent, and there are up to a number of times, like I mentioned, we do get upset. So take that opportunity to show that, okay, so say I am doing it and I will talk to you when I'm comfortable. I am not telling her, I don't want to talk to you. You've been the worst child, or you're going to sit down there because you did something so mean and so bad. If she wants to talk to me at that very moment, I will still listen to her. because maybe that, but I will try not reacting to maybe that acquisition that she's putting onto me. Now, whether it's shavasana, child pose, or sitting in a place, again, give them the freedom. See, as an adult, we would normally say you can go out and just take a walk, get away from the situation. Now, we can't tell a child, get out of the house and go on the road and take a walk. That cannot happen. They have to be in that safe boundaries that they are limited to. So in that space, if they feel that, okay, they want to stay away for some time, is where we'll tell them, take your time. The minute you're ready to talk, but when you will talk to me, you will talk to me without being, without accusing me or something. We'll talk about it in with open minds and trying to understand what went wrong rather than accusing each other. So if it can happen at that point of time, fair. If you can control and you say, okay, I will be here right here in the moment without, leading this somewhere which is going to be nasty for both of us. And if your child is also in that zone, have that conversation then and there. Do not avoid this conversation. That avoidance is not, that 1 minute is not to say if you're pushing things under the carpet, it won't happen again. That's not what we are looking at. It is just giving both of you all the time to calm your mind down, because anger does lead to that certain reactions which are not going to be very pleasant. So to have that control, you need to have control over your mind. And that's where that isolation helps at times.
Thanks, Sabrina. Nishta, I want to ask something very specifically from you, since you do work with grown-ups who are dealing with very serious, complex emotions, is what I would call them. And, they carry them in their body. Like, there's a very clear connection between how you're feeling emotionally into like how stiff your hips are going to be or how comfortable you are in walking. So as a parent, how do you think how well can we read the actual physical signs? The child might be grinding their teeth, or, there might be something that we can pay attention to, which might be a result of something which is far more emotional in nature than just a physical aspect. Something that parents can watch out for, almost like a checklist that they can have ready.
Yes, what you said, Jyoti, is very true, that no matter how old we are, even as we grow older, it probably in fact becomes a little bit too conditioned. But there are always signs in the body, in the way a person's carrying themselves out, in the body language, even of the kids very much, as to what their thought processes are, what their emotions are, what is being processed, what is not being processed. So as a parent, I guess once they start becoming more aware of their own body, they will also be able to spot that in their kid. For example, a parent is a yoga practitioner also, that awareness anyway gets very heightened. You're understanding simple movements as to where you feel restricted. And I know, okay, I'm really holding on to, say, for example, my shoulders. I have a tendency to drop. So the parent, once they start realizing that, look, I'm storing here, they can be a little bit more sensitive to their kids' body language. Now, like you mentioned, grinding of teeth, correct. Grinding of teeth very often is associated with anger. Anger or holding. For example, sometimes the kid is, in attempt to be disciplined, is constantly told, you must keep quiet, do not raise your voice, or, certain strong statements are put out where their natural outlet is not allowed to come out. For example, in that situation, the child will be like, okay, I won't be considered a good boy or a good girl if I am raising my voice or saying what I feel. Then they start suppressing, probably start grinding, probably start holding fists really tight, probably have really tight jaws, for example, or many such things. Probably start feeling weird in the stomach as a result of anxiety. For example, at a certain age, parents start noticing their kids, things like stage fear, competitiveness, being in group activities where nervous tension really starts to build up. So that is when, so in Ayurveda, we say the growing kids' vata energy, which is the wind energy, is very high. So, which can, on a flip side, on the good side, when it's balanced, be very creative. Expression can come out really well. But on the not so flip, good side for that matter, when it's imbalanced, it can make the kid feel erratic, joint pains, nervousness, overthinking, constantly worried, feeling like, okay, I will be put down, or having all sorts of thoughts, will I be noticed by the teacher? Will I be, will I stand out, for example? So all these thought patterns, for example, are very much there in kids because the vata energy one is very high. So to notice how the kid is, again, vata energy translates itself into the body in the form of anxiety, nervousness, feeling butterflies in the stomach. A kid learns to describe this very soon in their life, or restlessness, constantly jumping around, not having enough space, maybe in a household, to expend their energy. So knowing what are these signs, or it can be even the opposite, where the kid is very quiet or has over a period of time become really quiet. Could used to be a very talkative, jovial kid and may have gone really quiet. Um, doesn't like to come back from school and talk about school. May get triggered by certain things, maybe by the name of a friend, maybe by the name of some sport activity or any kind of school related or external environment related activity, or from a person. These are the signs for a parent to look at when the child maybe has gone from, say, something which was a part of their normal life, they were fine about it, but has started to withdraw. One would be withdraw, one would be in extreme, being too energetic, having too much, but that outlet isn't coming out. So that is when the child's emotional state isn't finding that balance, right? So either it is being suppressed, or it is, being held back in such a way that it doesn't want to expend or doesn't want to put out also. So these are certain signs in emotions, in behavior, in action, in the way they communicate or rather don't communicate, can be seen by a parent in their child. Even for example, sometimes parents start noticing the child wakes up, with probably dreams, nightmares, which are not too comfortable, end up having, the habit of being in bed even to a later stage. Again, these are signs of certain fears or emotions that the kid is not able to deal with. So a lot of such behaviors can be noted by the parent to understand if the kid isn't finding that outlet.
So once somebody notices it, now I just want to understand, like, how do you, the next step is providing a safe environment in the house. After all, it is where you live. That's where your parents are, your family is. So if somebody has to take just a learning from today's session and say, you know what, I am going to provide a safe space for my child. I will help my child label and understand these emotions and then walk towards them. What should be like the first 3-4 things to keep in mind as we get started?
I think the first one has to be a really open communication where the child is not afraid to come and speak to the parent. Between the two parents, if there is one parent which has a more freer rapport, then they must continue and also start allowing the second parent to be a part of the safe circle. So this communication, free communication, has to be very prevalent in a household. There may be kids sometimes they are scared of one parent or the other. So the one who is more comfortable, the rapport should stay open, and constantly the child must be reminded that here I am your mother, I am your father, and you can come and tell me, explain to me, express to me without being judged. Because again, see, the kid learns very fast that if I say something, whether they've learned it in the house or they've learned it in school, I'm going to fall in one of the two categories of being a good boy, good girl, or whatever it is. And if I say something, it won't be accepted, it won't be taken well, so I must stay quiet. So before the child learns to withdraw, it is important that this information must be put out to them that the doors are open for communication. Second, the other way, maybe not every kid can express verbally. It is also the case. Maybe they cannot speak and communicate. And if they're too young, they can't put it to words. If a parent does understand that, they can also take the help of a professional who's a child counselor, can be taken in a safe environment where they can get the kid to express. If a parent is not able to kind of break that bridge, or if it's gone to a point where the kid is really not freely expressing, taking the help of a professional and including a child counselor is also very, very helpful. Other than that, if a child, for example, if we're discussing the emotion of anger, which we just discussed a while back, if you see the root cause of anger comes from an extreme emotion of fear. The fear of probably not having control, the fear of not having autonomy is where anger starts finding its, form from. And in such a situation, for example, if the parent is able to recognize that the child is not able to deal with anger. Now, again, anger is an emotion which requires space. It can be expansive. It can lash out. So the kid may benefit from something like art therapy, wherein they can probably just have a blank sheet and scribble away. Let it out through the form of art, for example, if verbal communication is not their strength. So few of these things can be the case, or through body. The child can also be enrolled in classes where his energy or her energy can be extended in the form of dance, in the form of swimming, in the form of sports, which are very good outlets for the kid to release energy. This is if it's a case of a strong emotion. And slowly the kid can also be introduced to yoga and even storytelling. A lot of yogic storytelling can have a very positive impact on framing the child's mindset. So, working with a lot of these tools can help the parent take the child step by step through, a lot of their emotions.
Sabrina, your sessions have a lot of fun activities involved. Like most of your sessions end with either like a scavenger hunt, or you do some kind of activity that the parent and the child does together. So is there something that parents can do on daily basis, if not daily, at least like on weekends, on weekly basis, with their children to just keep that communication going? It need not be something as serious. Let's sit and talk about your emotions or what's happening in your school. Something which is just simple, easy to follow, but keeps that bridge intact, the communication bridge, which is it's really like, it's very difficult. I have like my nephews and nieces. It's very difficult to have a conversation with them anymore because they are now in their teens. But I remember that phase where you had to put in that extra effort into having them to talk about their day without actually asking that question, okay, tell me what happened at school today. So how do you simplify it by just fun exercises, fun activities, something which is easy for the parents also to do? Because, we have to accept the fact that most of the parents are not just physically exhausted. A lot of us are feeling we're feeling drained emotionally. There's so much going on in the world right now. And at some point, it does have an impact on the eventual relationship with with their child. So a simple mindful parenting tip, if we can call it that, for families to follow. Something
Right. So, right. So I think one, I'll probably give you a couple of them. First one I would say is have one meal together without any gadgets around, without any disturbance in terms of other people around. So if you're a family of 4, make sure you have, most often it's going to be your dinner time when you're sitting on the table. And when you're having a dinner, before you shoot out that question to your child as to how was your day, what did you do, start by yourself. So tell them something that happened during your day. Now, there is where one activity which is called the bud, the rose, and the thorn. So is where you tell your child, today something, the bud is something which happened, which was unexpected in terms of something nice that happened, which you didn't expect. The rose is what you were expecting and it happened, and you're really happy that it happened about in the day. And thorn is something that you never expected and it wasn't very good. It really didn't feel good during the day. So before you shoot out that question, it always helps. Like storytelling is something which kids love, and they always like to connect with things that you as a person are going through. So one thing that you can start the conversation is speaking to them about how your day was before you question them about their day. Another way, or another exercise that you can do with your family is called the acronym, which is called GLAD, GLAND. This is all about, again, understanding. So, before you go to bed, when you have the time in the room, when you're putting your child to bed, or you're just sitting around in the hall and you've done with dinner, chilling together, the word G stands for something that you are grateful for during the day, something that really happened that you were thankful for in the day. The word L, L is for something that you learned during the day. So this is like maybe each member of the family can take a chance to discuss about what they learned during the day. A is something that you've achieved. Now, achieve doesn't have to be coming first or a state level medal that we are looking at, but something as, for a child, it's as simple as I did my maths problem without making a single mistake. So, or anything. It's not about judging the child as to what happened and whether it was something great that you've achieved, but just understanding how the day was. And the last one is D, which is delight, something that made them happy during the day. So again, this acronym GLAND helps describe your day, helps you start a conversation. And this is where parents also need to be very mindful in terms of to listen to what your child is saying, not judging, not making fun, not telling them, oh, this cannot be something that, what is the big deal with something like this, but just sit down and listen. So these two things at the end of the day can really help understand how the day was, and then obviously the emotions that you and your child carried all through the day.
That's lovely. Sabrina, I have a question. Like, while you were speaking, we a lot of time parents tend to feed their emotions into their child psyche. If a child, like how Nisha was giving an example of a child is waking up with a nightmare, we tend to just immediately tell the child that you're scared, you're feeling fear, you should be really really scared, but mommy is here now, everything will be fixed. Does that lead to the child actually associating that particular feeling with something negative in place of something that they're feeling, but they will get over it eventually? Why I'm asking this question is because you remember we had a whole discussion about what emotions to put in the app and how to tackle them, because emotions are not a bad thing, it's the label that we give to them. So just a small one, I mean, of course, whoever wants to get into more details can get into the app, but how do we keep the negative and the positive away from the emotion? An emotion is an emotion at the end of the day. Like some simple tips on that.
Right. So I think there is where one is you as a parent is the way you deal. So many a times, if you are sad, so if a child is sad, or if you're sad, if you're crying, there is no hurry in stopping those tears. So it is not that that is what that emotion is doing to you. You feel like shedding those tears. Please go ahead and shed those tears. Don't be in a hurry. Whether it's a good emotion, so-called good or so-called bad emotion, no matter what the emotion, learn to experience that emotion as an adult and give your child equal time. At the same, it's not that you have to get over it in a day or two. At the same time, many a times as parents, we also make the statement, oh, this is so easy. Now it is not necessary. We say it thinking you're encouraging a child to do something before even starting off, saying, it's very simple, what is the big deal, come, I'll show you. But also understand it is not necessary. What is simple for you or simple for another child is going to be simple for your child. So when you're doing that part of it as well, do not give them already a feel of what they're going to feel like. At the same time, like you mentioned, when you get up scared in the night, you don't need to tell them that, oh, you are scared. Where you had a bad dream, you want to talk to me, you want to understand what happened. And like Nishta also mentioned, it's always, if it's going to be a recurring kind of a thing, then you also need to take help of a counselor. Yeah. Many a times it's a stigma that we feel, oh, we as parents, we can't help a child, but it's no harm. There is no harm in taking that additional help out there. So one, labeling them, and also opening up your, we have very restricted terms when it comes to emotions. There's happy, there is sad, there is anger, there is calm, but there are other adjectives that you can use. There is excitement. There's so many other things. So if you broaden your entire thing of the list of emotions, or the list of words that you can use to express what your child is going through, that also somewhere helps them understand that it is not just these 5 or 6 emotions that we know about. There's much beyond that. So as parents, I think the words that you use to describe emotions is which gives maximum impact to your child. So be very careful of how you want to describe that situation. Not making it too easy, not making it too difficult, but just trying to be there and experiencing that emotion.
Absolutely. I think it's the labeling and the vocabulary that needs to be worked on. Nishta, I know you are sharing a worksheet with everybody after this session. And I just realized we have only 15 minutes left, so we will be opening the chat window. But I do want your final thoughts on, you did mention that we will be talking about the inner child. If you can just explain to people what the entire concept is and what exactly you expect them to do using this worksheet, it would be really helpful, because, we do want parents to benefit. It is about mindful parenting as much as it is about understanding emotions in children. It's equally connected.
Correct. So when by the end of this session, you'll all receive a worksheet, and that is touching upon inner child. Now, I mentioned this in a passing in the beginning. Now, the concept of inner child is basically describing a subconscious personality we all have. It exists in all of us. Now, this doesn't mean to say when you hear the word inner child, people usually confuse it to be, oh, do I have childish behavior in me? No, it's not that. It's this a little, a child like identity, or your smaller child identity that exists within you even as you grow up, no matter what age you are. And that can sometimes be, in some cases, be a wounded child, a traumatized child, depending on the childhood a person had. It's very often we understand this. I think now people really are able to even talk about it, that a person had a sad childhood or had a a traumatized childhood. That is why they are the way they are. I think now people have come to understand that that past is holding such an important role in our present today. Yeah, we all end up discussing this at some level or the other कि उसके साथ तो ऐसा हो गया है and now he's come to be this way. So the same thing is that when you were, say, growing up and you had a certain set of values that were given to you, you had a certain parenting that you had to go through, that becomes a part of your personality growing up. Now that can be a little bit of good, a little bit of not so good as well, because if you went through a time where your parents, say for example, were really strict and you did not get that luxury of expression, you were asked to be disciplined in a way that your parents seemed fit and deemed fit, you end up carrying that forward with your child and moving forward into generations. And we've seen that around us as well. So now today, this discussion has brought us all together where literally all of us here are here only so that we can make a little, change when it comes to, our ancestral history, so to say. Because here we're trying to deal with our coming generation. But for that, we have to look back and rewind a little bit into what went amiss in our growing up, right? So if certain things went amiss, because our parents did the best as they could, but certain things that we don't want or don't wish for our children to have can be corrected when we are trying to be conscious about it. So this inner child activity is such that, say, for example, you'll be presented with a questionnaire, just a self-assessment. So it's at a very brief and at a very, so to say, surface level, so you understand it, right? Work can be done deeper with the help of therapists and counselors. But this worksheet is at a self-assessment level where you'll be presented with certain questions and it will help you to think, to introspect, to reflect. It'll take you back to certain childhood memories where you'll be asked questions as to, how was your behavior? What do you associate with this word? What do you associate yourself with this emotion? And you have to put that down to then able to understand that, okay, this is where I stand even today. Or maybe I don't hold so strongly to this particular incident or this particular emotion. And as a result of that, what am I ready to let go? What am I ready to, create in a different manner for my child, where I don't allow same patterns to be transferred onto my coming generation. So it's a very good way to constantly work on yourself, because whatever as a beautiful life we tend to imagine for our children, for our coming generation, we need to keep putting that work. And it is not something that starts on day one and ends by a month. It is a constant work in progress. It is human behavior that needs to constantly be worked on, and it is completely fine. So the inner child is this exercise that you will be doing will allow you to meet and remember the unmet or the suppressed emotions of your inner child that you didn't get a chance to deal with, tap into, which were just shoved and pushed away. But now maybe you can. So when you can help yourself, you can obviously then help your child as well.
Lovely. So everyone, please do remember to drop in your email IDs. We will be sharing this worksheet with you after this session is over. Meanwhile, Ranjit, if you could please open the chat windows. I just realized we have 13 minutes more. This is a very interesting session, but we will take questions from all of you. So if you can just start leaving them in the chat box, it would be super. And while people are leaving their messages, I do want to start with one because it came earlier in the form that says, how do you bond with children when you yourself are extremely drained with emotions? So both of you, I mean, this question is for both of you because what we were talking about, like exhausted parents tend to, yes, we are getting a lot of email. Nidhi, it wasn't gland, it was glad. And that session is also on the app, but you can always watch the recording. We will share the recording with you as well. Okay, everyone, if you have your questions, please start leaving them in the chat box. We have received your emails, but questions can also be shared here itself. Sabrina, why don't we start with you and say, we have a question, which is, how do I make my children emotionally strong to face the outside world and stand up for their values?
Right. So I think here is where you will have to give your child the freedom to first follow their intuitions and guts. So most often as parents, it is natural to safeguard your child's interest in everything, and you don't want them to get hurt. In the bargain, you start telling them that they're very strict guidelines that are given to them, because of which they know, okay, they have to follow this. But at the same time, when they go into the real world, they also realize that things are not actually as what we expect them to be. And there are going to be times when they will be in a situation which as per their values is not correct. Now, in that situation, for a child to stick up and or stand up and say that I am not going to fall to the peer pressure, whatever is happening, which I feel is wrong. One, they need to know that they have been loved unconditionally. There's absolutely no conditions that were given when it came to whether they were academic grades or the way they behaved or, what they did and what they said. Second, they having the self-confidence and the self-esteem to know that they are good the way they are. They are unique. That is their personality, and that's what makes them. Now, that also comes with, like I said in the start, is giving them the freedom of making mistakes, of learning as well. A child who's never given that freedom or the chance to take a decision, face the consequences, because whatever choice we make will always come with the consequence. As parents, we're always giving them directions of what to do, that they have to do something like this, or maybe if you come first and you get this, or if you do this and you'll get that. These conditions sometimes then is where that self-doubt also starts coming in, that if I do this and if I don't do it the way I wanted or I was expected to do, then what happens? So being loved unconditionally, to make mistakes, to learn from mistakes, not to be afraid of that, which is where their self-esteem and their self-confidence will come in. And that is where, when they are in the real world, and if they are in a situation where they have to stand up and say that this is something I'm not going to do, will help them stand up for their values.
Thanks, Sabrina. Nisha, this one's for you. Nidhi wants to understand more about the yogic stories. If you could just elaborate a bit on that piece that you spoke about earlier.
So when I mentioned yogic stories, I meant there are many such stories that you can find either through classes that are available for kids, or even online if you try to look up stories which explain yogic concepts such as ahimsa, non-violence, such as satya, truthfulness, such as aparigraha, which is non-hoarding, collecting, and greediness. So many such stories which are beautiful concepts of yoga philosophy that are explained with nice narration, including characters of animals and nature, can be a beautiful way to convey to the child for them to, set an understanding. So before they grow up, it's when they're very young, their mind is very malleable. And so for them to receive such concepts in a story form is great, because it stays with them for life. So this is what I meant by yogic stories, to explain beautiful yogic concepts in a narration, in a narrative manner.
Great, thanks. This question is for both of you, and I think it's a very common question. How to deal with mobile addiction in kids? Different age groups, 2.5 years to 12 now. Sabrina,
right. I think, this is again coming to the inner child there and saying that first curb your addictions. How often in a day are you keeping your phone down and not doing anything and just listening to your child? It is a challenge, and everybody is going through it. Also, many a times this has been used as a convenient way when it comes to feeding and food eating habits. Seen this lots of times, people giving kids their phones, parents giving their phones, which is fine. I'm not saying there are all times when we are drained out and we just need a break, and kids come to you at a point when they know that you're so drained out and you're just going to say, yes, take it, give me my space. They're very smart when it comes to that. So they'll come, they'll ask you, can I please have it? And you're at that point of time, just take it, I have some other work to do, which is fine. But yes, today everything has taken over. What we also need to see when we say addiction is how productively are they using that screen. There are lots of good information out there that you can use your screen for. Like Nisha also mentioned, maybe for the yogic stories, or there's lots of other apps, lots of other things which can be used when the screen is there. we need to make sure the apps they are using on is it's for children. It cannot be the content has to be appropriate for their age. So that is one thing that we can control. Giving them a certain time. Today, thankfully, kids are now going to schools. They're out of the house, so there is 3/4 of the day that you are spending outside. So again, that restriction has come in. Give them a time, maybe during a day, maybe 15 minutes, whatever you as a parent feel is required, to let them have that little, because it has now become a part of our life. We cannot say we are going to give our child zero screen time. It is very difficult. So I normally would recommend like a 15 minutes, 20 minutes timer, or a window where it's their time. Let them see. Like I said, obviously not things have to be age appropriate, whatever they're watching out there. And try not using this as something that you want to give them when you need your time off. So try not falling into the trap of giving it out there. And I think we should be able to then come back to not exploiting it.
Manish has a special request for you, Sabrina. He's saying, please make your videos in Hindi language too. My daughter's 4 years old and loves to do night yoga. And I have to be with her during the yoga, and during the daytime when I'm not beside her, she misses it. We'll work on that. We will.
Noted. We will, yes.
I have also shared the YouTube link of some of the yogic stories that we have done in the past. We also have stories on the app, and we will continue adding to our YouTube channel. There's a playlist there. We will email it to you as well, because we keep adding to it. It's a free resource for everybody. You can access it whenever you want. Yes, we will send them on email as well. There was another question. Okay, how to understand a child with speech delay? He's going through speech therapy, but still is difficult for him to express himself. So, I would request you to share more details over email, because I do feel it's a slightly more personal matter which requires more attention. We would love to understand more, and then accordingly we will get back to you. You can just write to us at support@thinkright.me, thinkright.me. Yes, please just send it across and we will get to it. Also to help us is again, okay, how to connect with a 9-year-old so that he does not lie or hide things from me. I think it's again about communication, but Nishtha, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So if you're noticing that your kid is lying and hiding, I think it points to one thing primarily, that it's afraid. He or she is afraid of something, afraid of being disciplined, yelled, punished, or something, and it feels that whatever that he or she is hiding is something that shouldn't be known by the parent. So try to not express this situation. Once you find out that the kid is hiding or lying, do not deal with it with anger. Or immediately trying to discipline your kid. Try to dissociate yourself with the child's behavior and remind yourself that the kid and the behavior are two very different. It's still your child, it's still your kid. So do not put that label that my child is a liar and my child is hiding. So learning to dissociate is very important. In that situation, you'll be then able to handle in a more neutral manner and understand the psychic of the child, that it is coming from fear and what is scaring my child. Then you'll be able to work on, the next steps ahead.
Okay. Milind is always there for all our webinars. So lovely to see you again. It's not really related to emotions, but I do feel there is a connection there. The question is, how do I make my kids more health conscious? Because I think it's a term that parents use, being health conscious. Kids they work on likes and dislikes is what I feel. They like something, they'll eat it. They like an exercise, they will do it. They are mostly free and actually the purest when it comes to being healthy. Healthy or unhealthy choices are something that the parents are making for them. That's what I feel. It's us who decide, okay, maybe having apple with peanut butter in the morning is a healthier option compared to my child just eating a toast with jam and butter. It's not a decision that the child has made. It is something that is coming from us as parent. We need to be very careful of what label we put against different food items. It's very easy. Mindful eating is, of course, about what you're putting in your system, but the thought that's going with it. There might be a day when you want to eat that deep fried samosa, go for it. It's fine. You're just eating something that you like, the moment you associate the dish with a particular feeling and you're eating it and you're already saying, oh my God, this is so bad for me. Oh my God, this is a treat you're getting. Oh, it's deep fried, it's so bad, but it's so good that I'm still eating. These are all emotions and attachments and labels that we are giving. So I think a health conscious child is something that the parent wants. But yes, you can still help them make more healthy choices. You need to keep the right food at the home, create the right atmosphere, create the safe space where you can talk about things without deeming them negative. But Sabrina, being the mother of a tween at this point of time, how do you deal with this?
It's sorry, my thoughts around. But like Jyoti, like you mentioned, one is the options that you have. Make sure the options that you're giving them or things that are around, it has to be a balance. You cannot, with the exposure and the number of parties and social life and lots of other exposure that they have, it's very difficult for a parent to control every morsel that a child is eating. Thankfully, schools nowadays are also giving them a healthy meal option. Most schools are looking at providing meals in school, so that somewhere balances that out. Normally, what I do is over the weekend, and that's as a family, that's what we do. So Monday to Friday is always what is made in the house, what we need to eat, and weekends is where we let loose a little. So a balance is what we all need to look at. If you're going to constantly restrict your child saying, no, you cannot eat that lollipop or you cannot have sugar, somewhere, the forbidden fruit is always going to be more sweeter. And that's when the fear and then, the things they start hiding from you. You're going to go to school, you're going to have kids who are going to have their birthdays, you're going to get chocolates in school. How long are you going? So rather give them the freedom to learn to balance it out. I'd say, fair enough. You had a good day. You went for a party or you had your friend's birthday or whatever it was. You've enjoyed the meal. That is very important. Again, the emotions that go into what goes into your system. So without having that guilt that comes in, if you enjoyed something, it is just making you happy. So that's how you can deal with it.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. I have shared our email address with you as well in the chat in case anybody has more questions that they want to share with us. And yes, they're all there. And we'll get back to you. And Manish, definitely point noted. We will work on it. We will update you soon as well. And thank you so much. Have a lovely Sunday evening. Enjoy yourself. I know a lot of people want to get back to the match as well. Thank you so much, Sabrina. Thank you so much, Nishta. It's always a pleasure to have you around.
Thank you, Jyoti. It was wonderful. Lots to learn and looking forward to more sessions like this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jyoti. It's always wonderful to be in a group of parents today and hear about kids and lovely kids stories. So thank you. Have a great Sunday, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye.